Are we really surprised? Hello and welcome back to the Athletics Insider Podcast. I'm your host, Andrew Ferguson, writer for the Athletics on SI, providing you daily coverage on your favorite baseball team. In today's episode, we are going to be breaking down the Athletics' rough 9-5 loss. It was kind of expected. We kind of knew this was the result coming into the series. But we're going to be breaking it up into a few parts. First off, going to be giving out the flowers to players who performed the best in this game, in my opinion. Then I'm going to go on a little pitching rant, kind of what went wrong in this game overall. And then I'm also going to be breaking down how the Athletics can approach game two with Jack Perkins on the mound, how to avoid a similar result. And to cap things off, just some broader athletics news, we're going to be talking about Jacob Wilson's status as well. But before we get started, I want to thank everyone right now who is listening, whether that be Apple Music, Spotify, or even YouTube. It all means a lot to me, and I cannot thank you enough. Also, make sure to check out all my articles, along with my co host Dylan Quinn's articles on Athletics on SI. To find them, just simply look that up into any web browser you are using, and our articles will be right there. Also, make sure to follow me on my X account at aferglv. I provide daily content there, whether that be articles, podcast clips, etc. It's all going to be there. But with that said, let's get right into the show. So, as I kind of mentioned earlier, the Athletics would lose 9-5. Another game where the Athletics offense looked good, and the pitching simply just could not get it done for the team. It was rough, but it was expected. We kind of figured this was going to happen when just looking at the overall series, preview with who the Athletics were going to be setting on the mound. We're kind of on the back end of the rotation where it gets really scary for the Athletics. But besides that, though, it was just a tough game. You want to see the Athletics beat a Royals team who, honestly isn't that much better than the Athletics. Obviously, there is a gap, no matter what, considering the Athletics are like the second worst team in the league, if not the worst. But getting a little bit off track. But to start the podcast, I did say I wanted to highlight the top performers of the game. I wish I could talk about a starting pitcher, but cannot cannot happen today. So to start off, Jeff McNeil first in the lineup. He would start the game off with a leadoff home run to really get the momentum going for the Athletics. And I've been emphasizing this in every single one of my episodes. And when I talk about the keys to the wins, how the Athletics can overcome, a deficit in a series, or the Athletics having a Jacob Lopez on the mound who's going to give you good innings. It's always been about starting the game hot, giving your starting pitcher, some comfort, some momentum to potentially lead to something better. And Jeff McNeil did that perfectly. Obviously, maybe you want to get on base, and then you know uh, maybe Lawrence Butler brings everyone home, but. Again, I'll take a solo home run in the first inning. It's going to hurt the other pitcher. It's going to mess up his mental. And like I said, it's always going to give a boost to the Athletics as a whole to have that momentum. And especially for McNeil to do that, knowing that he is a leader in the clubhouse, that is an extra bonus to, a knock like that early in the game. And overall, he's been playing really good baseball, top from bottom. His power has been, kind of crazy lately. And again, just being a consistent leader, a consistent hitter is all the Athletics are really asking for from Jeff McNeil. I kind of want to see him back in the green and gold next year. We'll see how that goes when the offseason comes around. But yeah, great game from McNeil. Despite going 1 for 4, he set the tone early, and then it was just a matter of the Athletics just not being able to close this game out cleanly, and take a lead pretty much. Besides that, good for McNeil. Hopefully, we see more. I like him in the leadoff spot. Him and Bolte, they kind of switch off, deciding on depending on how Kotze is feeling that day. It seems like, loving how he's playing. Hope he continues. And at the leadoff spot, the Athletics have gotten a lot of production. I also want to give a shout out to Brian Servin, a catcher who was brought up from AAA Las Vegas, who has been, a pretty solid guy, all things considered for the Athletics. When Langoliers went down, you obviously got to bring someone else up to kind of mend that wound. And Brian Severin, I wouldn't say he's healed it fully, but his power, 3 home runs. His first home run, I believe, I want to say it was in the Red Sox series a month ago or something like that. Uh, that was like his first home run in like 3 years or something. And all of a sudden, it feels like there's a chance every time he comes up to bat. But yeah, he would hit a 2-run home run. Super happy that he's playing well. And obviously, Heim, he is kind of, I would say, a little bit hit and miss. But overall, I think it's a solid 1-2 catcher duo for the Athletics, given the circumstances. Obviously, you're not going to be a playoff team if those are your two guys. who are catching. But either one of them being a backup for Langoliers next year. Heim's contract is obviously ending this offseason, so it'll be interesting to see what Servin's role with the team will be moving forward. But like I said, loving how he's playing. Like I said, it seems like he really is hitting a home run every time he's up to bat, which is not true. But again, his last game versus Texas, he'd go 1 for 4, he'd get a single and score a run. That was, it helped, the Athletics. Obviously, they would lose that game, but again, some production. But yeah, I'm liking how he's playing. Again, I'm not expecting him to, go 3 for 4, 2 home runs, none of that. But it is what it is with the Athletics and the injuries and having to figure out how to fill, that whole Langoliers left. And I think Servant is doing all right at that. Again, I keep mispronouncing his name. I really need to look it up. I forget every time I record this podcast. But Hayden Wenger, yeah, Wenger, I'll go with that. Hugener. So it's bad. I'm sorry, but yeah, he would have a really good game versus the Royals. He'd pitch 2.1 innings, not allow a hit or a base runner. But yeah, 2.1 innings pitched. All you can ask for a guy in your bullpen. I was a little upset a few weeks ago when the Athletics would send him down to AAA in favor of bringing up Junior Tur. And as we know, he has like a 47 or an even higher ERA than that since coming up for the Athletics. So I'm happy he's back, and we're starting to kind of see the fruits of that. Like I said, 2.1 innings, not giving up a hit. That's exactly what you want from your bullpen. Scott Blewett, he would kind of have an up and down game as far as the bullpen goes, but I don't think he did too bad. 2 innings, 3 hits, one run allowed, and he struck out 3 batters. So not a bad performance from him either. And given the circumstances, everything, I'll go into the pitching here in a second, but overall, not a bad game from Scott Blewett either. But yeah, really liking the trajectory this Athletics bullpen is going for the most part. I mean, like I've said a lot, a few bad apples spoil the bunch, and I think that just was the case in this game. So unfortunate, but yeah. So moving on, we're going to be talking about the pitching and kind of what happened there in this game. So Mason Barnett on the mound, and I keep reemphasizing this, the result of this game was expected. We knew that Mason Barnett is simply not that guy right now. He hasn't been that guy for a while. He was a closer for 1 point for the Athletics, and he kind of became like a mid inning to late inning guy for the Athletics. But then when Jeffrey Springs went down, then you had to bring in Mason Barnett to be a pitcher for the Athletics. And overall, have not been happy with him on the mound at all. 2.1, 2.2 innings pitched, 7 hits, 6 earned runs. He walked 4 batters and only struck out 2. So just an ugly game from Mason Barnett. At this point, I really was hoping we'd see a little bit more from him. When he first entered the rotation, I'll admit I was a little high on him because he has shown us good stuff. I want to say there was one game where he had to open, or he was like the long starter guy, the long reliever guy who came in after Basso pitched the first inning. I believe that was the situation in that game, but he looked pretty good in that game. He would give up some runs, but overall, I saw a lot of, there was a lot of stuff to go off of from that game, which I thought would result into him being a better pitcher in the Athletics rotation. But yeah, just wasn't there today at all. When we kind of look into next year and what his role will be, he will not be in the starting rotation. If he is, that is just a sign that the Athletics do not want to win baseball games anymore. But yeah, I could see him, potentially go into the bullpen. I mean, like I've said, he has been okay for the Athletics as a reliever, not the best, but again, just serviceable for the most part. But yeah, as soon as, and I want to say it's going to get better. I don't think it's going to get better when Jeffrey Springs comes back. uh it's the same thing. You know what I mean? It's going to be bad no matter what in this fourth slot in the rotation, no matter how you kind of frame it. There's just not really much hope for the Athletics in the last two pitchers in the rotation, although Jack Perkins has been okay. But again, Mason Barnett and Jeffrey Springs, no matter who you throw out there, is not going to give the Athletics much to go off of, and won't be a reason why the Athletics win the games that they start in. So just a rough game. And the most disappointing thing about this all I've kind of, talked about it in my last episodes, especially during the Ranger series, is we saw a new approach to how Mark Kotsay selected his relievers in the game, and kind of how that went. We would see, a guy like Luis Medina, he'd pitch 1.2 innings and then give up a hit, and then all of a sudden he was taken out for a Drew Rom. Again, with only Barnett pitching 2.2 innings, that was completely off the table. A solution that was there and worked could no longer be applied uh, in this game because Mason Barnett was only able to survive 2.2 innings. So definitely really frustrating there. Because, like I said, I felt like there was a lot of things to go off of from that Ranger series that felt sustainable in a way. I mean, I believe the number was like 6.2 innings pitched without giving up. I think they only gave up like 5 hits and 0 runs, which considering an entire series worth with the worst bullpen in the MLB, that is a great series for these guys. It's almost flawless. But to see that completely get swept under the rug, and that game plan just being completely derailed, I knew this would happen. And again, I keep saying I wasn't surprised, but this is exactly what I was talking about. I knew when it would come, when push comes to shove with Mason Barnett and Jack Perkins, I'll get into him later. Um, the Athletics aren't going to be able to do that strategy. You're not going to be able to use 4 relievers using that, or you're not going to be able to utilize your bullpen using that, strategy of when it starts to drizzle. Um, Completely take him out of the game, clear the forecast. You know what I mean? That was just not going to be an option for the Athletics. And yeah, it was a huge reason for why the A's lost this game. But yeah, very disappointing game for Mason Barnett. And like I said, sometimes you feel bad for this bullpen, right? You know, as much as as bad as they've been all season, right? They've had obviously the starting pitching with Jacob Lopez, for example, in the Rays game when he would pitch 7 innings and then the bullpen would give up 8 runs in a single inning, right? You can't really give him too much credit there. But in a game like this, where your starting pitcher only pitches 2.2 innings, game one, by the way, so you still got 2 more games left in this series, and then you got the Twins coming up next. You're going to have to use a lot of arms. And at this point, the Athletics obviously aren't going to be trying their hardest to win baseball games. And obviously, Kodsay and all the other players are going to be like, we're fighting, till the last game of the season, which is true. But, there's always going to be some unease. It's going to be, it's an unconscious feeling for these guys that, the Athletics are just not in a good place right now. Um, it's just frustrating overall. And Mason Barnett is, a key reason for that to happen. But yeah, like I said, and then because of that, we saw, Hayden Urgan pitch 2.1 innings. He did good. Scott Blewett 2.0 innings. I mentioned his stat line, and then Seth Johnson 1 inning. He would allow 3 hits and 2 runs. So again, you're asking your w- dead last ranked bullpen to go out there and pitch 5.1 innings in a game. It's just not going to work out for the Athletics at all. And like I said, I knew this situation would happen where, Kotze, taking out relievers after allowing a base runner. Although it's a questionable strategy at times, it worked for the Athletics and for this bullpen, it worked and it was okay. I was okay with it. But again, when you get yourself in these situations, it's not going to happen. Because, like I said, what if you're going to do that in this game? Like I said, Barnett was only able to last 2.1 innings or 2.2 innings. What you're going to throw in a Luis Medina, an Elvis Alvarado, a Hogan Harris. You're going to throw your entire bullpen out if you decide to use that strategy. Again, the solution to the Athletics, bullpen problem. So seeing Barnett completely ruin that was a little bit frustrating. And I also want to talk a little bit about Seth Johnson, the guy that the Athletics would trade for at the trade deadline. They sent Colby Thomas to the Phillies in exchange for Seth Johnson. He has just not been a really good pitcher for the Athletics at all, in my opinion. He has a 7.29 ERA in this game. He would give up 2 runs in his last game. Before this game, he would pitch 1 inning against the Rays. He wouldn't allow any runs. He would actually have a decent inning for the most part, but then the game before that, he would give up 4 runs before get and wouldn't even get an out. So again, the Athletics were obviously not going to be shopping, not going to be getting any big names at the deadline, considering the state they were in at that time. But Seth Johnson has just been a net negative for the Athletics as of late, and it's disappointing, especially sending Colby Thomas. I like the guy. I thought he played hard. But to see him go in exchange for Seth Johnson, who has not really been a good pitcher whatsoever, even with the Phillies, I felt like, there were some questionable outings. Obviously, there were some good. I'm not going to dismiss those. But bottom line is he's been a net negative for this athletics team. And like I said earlier, without being able to, be in a position to where it's going to hurt your team later on in the series by, taking out a reliever after, allowing a base runner, you can't really do that now, especially with Seth Johnson. Um, you know what I mean? It wouldn't have been worth it. So a result like this is, expected from him. But yeah, disappointing. I really do hope he turns things around at some point, because if he does, like I said, with how the Athletics bullpen has been playing with that strategy, if Seth Johnson can get online and maybe be in those situations where it's okay, like you go up and give up a hit, you're out of the game. You're not going to be the inning eater that he's kind of been as of late. So yeah, just disappointed in him. And again, I think my whole attitude towards this trade is that the Phillies wanted, Colby Thomas, not vice versa, not the Athletics wanting Seth Johnson. Obviously, there was a need for a reliever, but again, um, I didn't really understand this trade too much. But yeah, all I really got to say about that and the pitching, it's just been abysmal. Jack Perkins will be on the mound in game 3, and that leads us to the next section of this podcast, with how the Athletics can, handle a Jack Perkins outing. I do want to say maybe he turns things around in this next game, but again, I don't think it's going to happen. I've been saying the next one is going to be the better one for Perkins, but again, time and time again, he just has not proven to be that guy for the Athletics, and that's the bottom line with Jack Perkins, Mason Barnett, Jeffrey Springs, Aaron Savali earlier, before he was traded. But yeah, just not. I'm not confident that Jack Perkins is going to go out there and have himself a game. I would say maybe Kotze opts to use an opener or, something like that. Maybe we see Luis Medina take the first inning, Elvis Alvarado, just to kind of get through that top end of the lineup and then allow Jack Perkins to kind of go in and do well. That's a risk, but again, you're avoiding the top of the lineup, which I think would help out Perkins a lot. But like I said, it's going to be hard no matter what. If the Athletics win game 2, I'll be shocked. I'll be surprised. It'll come out of nowhere, in my opinion. But yeah, like I said, it's going to be difficult, and I don't know what strategy the Athletics are going to do, because if you're going to, try to fix the starting rotation like you have with the bullpen, it's just not going to work. If Jack Perkins comes out there and gives up a hit to the first batter, you're not going to take him out, right? So there's going to be some blows traded between the Athletics and Royals in game 2. I mean, I think that's just a given. But yeah, like I said, I think the only real solution is maybe putting out an opener. Like I said, Luis Medina, Brady Basso, even, just to kind of, get an early out in the first inning, get that inning over with, and then throw in Perkins to, maybe pitch 3 innings, 4 innings max. I don't really want to see him or see a game where he's pitching 5+ innings, unless he's obviously playing good, then that's okay. But yeah, that's really the only solution I have for the Athletics. And like I said earlier with Jeff McNeil, just starting the game off hot again, being aggressive, scoring runs when you can. If you have a runner on first, lay down a bunt, get him in scoring position. Obviously, 0 outs would be ideal, but you just have to figure out how you're going to be able to support Jack Perkins in this game. And normally I would be worried about the bullpen, but if there's some sense of stability, Perkins is able to go 5 innings, I'm not going to be too worried about them, especially with who the Athletics have left. Like I said, Luis Medina, Elvis Alvarado, Hogan Harris. You could throw in Brady Basso in that game as well. Um, I think it'll be okay for the Athletics bullpen in that game. So, yeah, bottom line is you just want to make sure the Athletics are able to start off hot, whether that be using an opener uh, or being more aggressive on offense. That's just going to be how the Athletics are going to be able to turn things around in game 2, and then maybe push the series decider to, a gauge jump game. Um, So yeah, in game three. So that's kind of where the Athletics need to do and kind of figure out where they can be in that case. But yeah, and then so that's all I got for that. It's going to be a rough game, in my opinion. Not many things the Athletics can do to change that with Perkins on the mound. So, moving on, I'm going to be talking a little bit about Jacob Wilson. So earlier, before 2 hours before the game, the Athletics would release the lineup. Jacob Wilson would go to batting practice, and he would be taken out of the lineup after some soreness. And I think at this point, it's time to just shut him down for the season, and that is going to be my take on this situation. Obviously, Nick Kurtz, thumb injury. It was like a 4 weeks timetable, a week ago. If he were to come back exactly, it'd be like September 9th, I believe. Um, and again, you have like 14 more games left in the season. It's not really worth it to bring him back. But yeah, but Jacob Wilson, I think he maybe should have been shut down a little bit earlier this season, in my opinion. I love that he's playing and being a competitor. That's what you want from, a cornerstone shortstop like Jacob Wilson. But at the end of the day, you got to think about the future. I mean, he's had lingering issues, with his hip, his back, his shoulders, and then he got hit in the hand. I mean, he's getting banged up this year, and with the Athletics potentially losing 100 plus games, it's just not worth playing him for the rest of the season. But yeah, that's how I feel about it. And again, I think Alika Williams, his replacement at shortstop, is going to be good enough for the Athletics there. And again, like I said, at this point of the season with the Athletics looking bad, you just want to establish those guys who could potentially, be contributors next year and beyond, and or be a trade for the Athletics, near the deadline or in the offseason to kind of bolster up that bullpen or, that starting rotation in that fifth spot. Obviously, the starting rotation should be fine next year. I think when you have Gage Jump, JT Ginn, Jacob Lopez, then you add in Luis Severino, it's four solid pitchers in my opinion that I think the Athletics will be fine with, and then maybe even a Jamie Arnold for that fifth spot, depending on how fast he develops to finish off the season and how he looks, during spring training or whatever. So, yeah, I think the options for the Athletics needs to be prioritizing the bullpen this offseason, and I think that can be done by letting guys like Alika develop, guys like Donovan Walton develop, Tommy White even though I he would hit a home run in this game, he looked good, but again, you just have to figure out who you want on this team for the future. And I think that can only be, truly accomplished if Jacob Wilson's out of the game and not taking away at bats from like Alika Williams and all those other, defensive substitutions the Athletics have had out there. You want to try to get as much value from them as possible. And like I said, there's multiple reasons why sitting Jacob Wilson for the rest of the season is a good idea. Like I said, don't want him to re-aggravate anything. You want him to be 100% healthy for next season when the Athletics on paper could be a very good team, right? And then two, you don't want to be taking away reps and at bats and defensive opportunities away from guys who could potentially bring you back a big haul, or not. I wouldn't say a massive haul, but a sizable one to where the Athletics have something to go off of. So that's how I feel about that. It's unfortunate. It sucks. I also mentioned last episode Tyler Soderstrom on the IL. I would even consider not even bringing him back, just because as we've met as we have seen all season, Tyler Soderstrom has been right up there with Nick Kurtz and Shea Langoliers. Right, he's been the third best athletic this season, and again, like I said, you want him healthy because again, it would hurt, but maybe trading Tyler Soderstrom next year, right? I mean, he is such a valuable player. A very team friendly contract that could bring in a lot of players. So you don't want to mess anything up there if that's the plan. I don't think it will be the plan, but like I said, you want to get him healthy. A fully healthy athletics lineup is very scary. I mean, all the players on the IL right now, for example. I mean, you have Joshua Grauer, Nick Kurtz, Shea Langoliers, Tyler Soderstrom, potentially Jacob Wilson if he decides to go to the IL or if he gets sent to the IL. That's a very terrifying lineup. So already, and then I haven't even gotten to Zach Eloff or Lawrence Butler when he's hot, obviously. But yeah, it just looks really good on paper, and you want to make sure you can maximize that lineup next year. You don't want to, push it too far. in a season that has been so dreadful as this one. So, yeah, that's all I have for today's episode. I hope you guys enjoyed this edition of the Athletics Insider podcast. And as I mentioned earlier in the beginning, make sure to check out all my articles on athletics on SI. Again, just look it up in your web browser and you'll find it right there. Make sure to follow my X at AFergLV to stay up to date with the athletics. Yeah, I enjoy doing this. I'm very happy about it. Oh, and one more thing, I was able to get a signed Jose Canseco jersey today. I thought I'd mention that. I think it was pretty cool. Facebook Marketplace, $50. Guy was super nice. Yeah, just thought I'd have to throw that in there. Super cool. When I move into my new apartment, I hope I can put that in the background at some point. So, yeah, that's all I got for this episode. I hope you guys enjoyed. And as always, go athletics and have a good day.